Hey, podcast world. Welcome to FNO, the podcast about all things insurance, technology, claims, etc. We're here today with your two esteemed hosts, Mr. Lee Boyd, who's coming to you live from Waco, Texas, and Rob Beller, who finds himself today in Sacramento, California.
Hi there, Rob.
Hi, Lee. How are you?
I am doing great today. Today is a beautiful day, nice and chilly. Some of us even brought out our winter wear here in Waco.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit chilly. But yeah, we've had a good day here. How is the weather there in Sacramento today?
It is Chamber of Commerce. It's probably 78 degrees and sunny, and I have a lot going on at my home office today. So if you hear noise in the background during our podcast today, it's those people making too much noise, even though I told them not to. So I apologize in advance. So FNO is a podcast about insurance technology, frequently referred to as InsureTech, and claims, and the union of those two things, and what's happening with insurance technology, how it's affecting claims, how it's affecting the claims business, which both Lee and I are in and are longtime veterans of the claims industry. And so our idea for this podcast was really pretty simple. Let's explore all these new, different emerging technologies that are coming into the marketplace that we believe will or may have an impact on the way that claims are handled from this point forward. Some of these things will be revolutionary. Some of them will be a flash in the pan and won't add up to anything. But the only way to really understand what's going on is to kind of dig past the surface of each one and see what we can learn about it, how it applies, and then give you our take on where it might fit into the ecosystem of doing claims. Both Lee and I come from a property claims background, so that's going to be probably always our slant and orientation, is looking at through the property lens. But we very well may talk with people who are involved in auto claims or liability claims or other different verticals within the claims business. So what you'll find with FNO is sometimes we're going to have guests who are from actual InsureTech companies that are either claims focused or relevant to the claims process to talk about what their products are, what their products mean, where they came from, how things work, and maybe even what their roadmap is from this point forward. We'll also have guests, we hope to have many guests, who can help us focus all the noise that's out there and kind of focus around how these different technologies are actually going to be harvested into a usable ecosystem of technologies that can be applied either together or separately towards the claims process. Okay, so let's talk about an example of two kinds of guests that we'll be having on the show. One that we'll be having in the not too distant are representatives from the company known as Hover. Hover is an InsureTech play that is currently making a good amount of noise in the marketplace. Lee, why don't you share with us what Hover does and why they're of interest to us?
Sure. Hover, I learned about Hover 2 years ago. And,
Wow.
And they were really on the market probably a year before I knew. So I think that they're about 3 years into business. And they started more in the military space, but they found their way into the contractors world. And at their core is really a measurement device. It takes the everyday phone, your iPhone or Android, and allows an individual to take 8 photos of the exterior of the home. And within a very short amount of time, roughly an hour, you were able to obtain a full 3D image of the home that shows all the measurements of the exterior portions of the home, showing measurements of the roof, measurements of the windows, of the doors. It's a fascinating product, but it even goes a little deeper than that into the customer experience. So if I'm an insured, I'm now able to say, I wonder what my home would look like painted red. And I can now change the color of my siding from white to red. It's really fascinating. They are focused heavily on the exterior of the home. They do have a very sound backing. Some of their backers are known companies such as Google, Home Depot, and Standard Industries, three of our larger giants out there in our space. So anytime Google decides they want to be a part of something, I always kind of listen and say, wow, what are we going to do with this? Where are we going to go? But Hover is a great, great product. They were able, I believe right now they're about a 97% automated rate of machine learning. So they're able to take those photos, and with only about 3% of the activity involved being human based, they're able to give you all of these measurements and diagrams. And most recently, they have just announced that they have a full integration with Symbility, which is very exciting. So you're able to order a Hover through Symbility, send it out to your phone as an adjuster or a contractor, and then all the measurements drop right back in to use the assemblies to quickly and accurately estimate the losses. Very excited about that product. So I think that Kevin Riley may be one of our guests on that one.
Right. And Hover is a good example of a product or a service that we've actually used at our company. Both Lee and I work for the company called 470 Claims, and we're an independent adjusting company with a nationwide footprint and who's been very active in taking advantage of new and different InsureTech technologies and ideas. And Hover is one of those that we've actually had experience with, that we've gotten to kick the tires, if you will, and take it for a test run. So not only will we be able to hear from Hover, we'll also be able to share some of our actual experiences about how that went and what we learned.
Right. And on that, if our listeners would like to, before that podcast, if they just go to the website hover.co, they are actually able to download the application and get a free Hover report. They're able to see just how quick and easy it is. Now, the Hover report does not come with the measurements, but if you do have a home that you want to look at it in 3D and maybe test out different shingles or GAF products on the roof, you can do that. So I recommend doing that before the podcast. And then once again, that podcast is going to talk about where they've been, where they are now, then hopefully the roadmap for where they're going to be going.
Right, right. Because what our hope here is that we can help to inform carriers or other vendors in the insurance claims space to have familiarity and to gain ideas about how to be utilizing these technologies. Because maybe like we've found for ourselves, some technologies aren't ready for us today, but we can see how they'll be ready for us in a year, depending on where their roadmap is.
Right, right. And that leads us into our second type of guest that we're going to have, which would be more of a carrier base, because we're interested in where they see these new technologies, where they are trying out these new technologies, because it is a little bit different. We are sometimes able to jump in and use these technologies quicker than the carriers are because they have a little more roadblocks that they have to overcome. So this would be a good time for us to be able to get their feedback as well. Rob, who are some of the carriers that we might be able to have on this?
Well, one of the carriers that we'll have very early on, representative from QBE. QBE is actually an international insurer. I think they work on almost every continent on Earth, but they have a strong presence in North America, and they've worked with us in close partnership of implementing different virtual strategies currently. And they'll be one of our first guests, and we'll have senior executives from their company on with us talking about different technologies and different ideas and how to optimize them within their claims process.
Yeah, I think that'll be really, really interesting. I've had some great talks with some of those executives and then some from others. And even where I think that our roadmap is going, it's always fascinating to be able to talk to them because where we deal with a lot of property claims, as you talked about, Rob, a lot of these folks are able to deal with underwriting. property claims, maybe water mitigation, different things like that. And that leads us into a whole new aspect of InsureTech, and one that I'm very interested in, and that is the prevention of claims. So
Mitigation.
often, yeah, so often we look at this technology and how are we going to be able to settle these claims quicker, more accurately. But really, we will take some time and we will say, how do we prevent the claim? How do we make sure that we're insuring the correct people, and that we're making sure that the property is the correct property that the insurance company wants? So, how do we get a better underwriting report? How do we make sure that we do damage detection within the homes? We're going to get a chance to talk to companies like FNO or RoboWater. We'll be able to talk to maybe some auto companies that use Bluetooth enabled devices on your vehicles, to really give a better understanding of who the insured is that this company has insured. So I think that's going to be a great atmosphere for us to talk in.
Right, because ultimately, from a carrier perspective, I think that they don't just want to leverage these technologies to help them once there is a claim, like you're saying, but maybe even to mitigate the claim from happening altogether, which is where a lot of these water flow detection devices are already probably having impact, yes?
Absolutely. I was talking to my local agent the other day, and I was telling them that I had gone to this very interesting event called InsureTech, and they use water detection devices in your home. And I asked if they had a discount, if I could use it, and they said no. But we're actually sending water detection devices out to some of our policyholders who have a high amount of water losses, because they believe that they can use this technology to stop the water losses. Because I believe I read, and I'll have to do the math and check on this, but if you've had a water loss in your home, it is a much higher risk that you will have an additional water loss within the next 12 months. Uh, so it's saying that, if a pipe goes out in the home or a leak occurs, it's very likely that it would occur in another portion of the home or at the same location. So these insurance companies have done the math and realized that's the case. So if it does happen in one, they're starting to send these devices out. We've talked to contractors of different companies, and they see this coming. They see that the world of mitigation and quick repair may dwindle if these carriers and these insurtech companies are able to bring the right technology to market. Because yes, we are in the claims market. We want to work your claims great and to the best of our ability. But an insurance carrier is going to look at it and say, how do we stop the claim? How do we make it as small as possible? Because that's really, at the end of the day, what makes a customer happy, right? If a customer didn't have a claim, they're much happier than if they had a claim. So let's see if we can keep it at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very exciting, dynamic time in our particular space of the insurance business, which, as we said before, is the claims area. Things are changing. That's in the air. There's a tension in the air, both on the vendor side of the business as well as on the carrier side, because I think that few people have a good picture of what this is going to look like 5 or certainly 10 years down the road. I've heard it said that InsureTech is probably not going to come as fast as people might expect, but the amount of disruption that is going to come from it is going to be greater than what people expect. So at 470, at our company, what we hope to do is we hope to stay at the front of that or in front of that for our own relevance and for our own corporate well-being. But we want to share those insights and those learnings that we gain as we go and the relationships that we formed. Lee and I recently had the opportunity to be at the InsureTech conference, and we met many, 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 many people. And we continue to meet many people after the conference in all kinds of different technology spaces and company spaces that are working towards this new future. Nobody knows exactly what it's going to look like yet, and I think that's what makes it kind of really fun and exciting.
And Rob, with that, I've had numerous phone calls since InsureTech, and the number one theme is we're not real sure what it looks like. We're not real sure what we're building. We're not real sure where we're going, but we know we need to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exciting because these companies, these large companies who are interested in getting into the InsureTech fields, they're coming with their full force. So, that it's really our world to make and it's our world to design. So we have a lot of excitement about sharing our conversations and our processes. And that's something that else that we'll be talking about is not just the companies and the founders and their history, but the processes that you can design and create to implement these actual technologies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we hope that you'll join us for the ride as we go. We see this as a podcast that will evolve with time. We hope that it can not only be informative, but that it can be a little bit entertaining, because let's face it, talking about insurance claims is not necessarily the most fascinating topic or intriguing topic, but we hope to treat it that way nonetheless, and that you'll give us your time and your energy and your input. We do have a website that we would like you to visit, where you will find information about the episodes and also ways to contact us. Kaylin, why don't you share with our audience where they can find that?
So our company website is www.470claims.com, and we will have a specific landing page that is being in the process of design right now, and you'll be able to find it at the top of the page when you first visit the home, and you'll essentially be able to click the tab labeled podcast, and we will have an inventory that you can make your selection on with a short description on what each episode entails. We will also have information that will be posted on our various social media platforms, and we are going to aim to have a constant uploading of future episodes at least once every 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you, Kaylin.
You're welcome.
Well, we're glad that you could join us for this abbreviated introductory episode to our podcast, FNO, which we're super excited about. First notice of anything is pretty much the way that we look at it. In future episodes, you will hear more about what we talked about today. And on our very first full episode, we'll have a very, very, very special guest who will really help to kick off our podcast as well as frame in the world of InsureTech today. So we'll see you then.